This is Inside the Crew, your weekly look at all things black and gold. Here's your host, Neil Sika and Dwight Burgess.
Wait for the drum fill. There we go. Going to begin your evening or your night with a friendly voice. Welcome to Inside the Crew. It's Victory Tuesday. Neil Sika with you. Dwight Burgess, unfortunately, was stuck eating some rubber chicken meeting at Wittenberg. So you're stuck with me for the next hour. But we've got some support. CB's here, as always. How you doing, Colin?
Doing pretty well. How about yourself?
Good. Good weekend?
Yeah, I can't complain. Pretty much all of my teams won, including the Crew, so you can't hate on that.
Not bad for the Crew family, the Haslam family, the Browns, the big win. So, a lot to celebrate coming down the stretch here at the end of the MLS regular season. Columbus eliminated from the playoffs officially last Wednesday, but they did beat Philadelphia on Sunday 2-0. And another team that Caleb Porter was gauging in that barometer, beat Atlanta on the road, you beat Philadelphia on the road at home. Those are two playoff teams within the top four, home playoff games. 21 points over their last 12 games. Just wish there were a few more. 5-1-6 in that spell. And in the Eastern Conference, only New York City has more points in that time. So a lot of good things going on the field. They're playing better. They're getting results. They're heading into the offseason. There is just so much going on, though, with the club, not only on the field, but off of it. It's going to be a huge, really 30 months if you count to the summer of 2021 and getting the stadium going. The brand new stadium with groundbreaking 10 days from now. Momentarily joined by President and General Manager Tim Bezbatchenko. We'll have him for the first half hour and talk all things black and gold as it relates to the product on the field, as it relates to the stadium, and really this organization and where it goes with its third ownership change in the last 6 years. But this ownership change here to stay, and it's local, and it's powerful, and there's a lot to be excited about. Our friend Luke Weilman from TSN. We're going to preview the regular season finale. Decision day is coming up. Big game for Toronto FC as Columbus goes there on Sunday. BMO Field. Kickoffs are just after 4 o'clock all across the league, 4 o'clock Eastern. And Toronto has a lot to play for. They're unbeaten in their last 8 and still vying for a home playoff game. They're currently 5th in the East. And then the season is over. But we will not be over, I promise you. We're going to go through probably the end of October and get you ready for the playoff games and wind down as we head into the offseason, that very short offseason. But we'll be more normal for Columbus because they won't have that ownership change. Everyone's in place. They've hired staff. They're ready to go, and so are we with President and General Manager Tim Bezbatchenko, who joins us now. Well, it's taken a while, but we finally have the President and General Manager with us here on the show. Tim Bezbatchenko joining Inside the Crew. How you doing, Tim?
Hey, I'm doing well, Neil. How are you?
Fantastic. Great to have you on. It's exciting time for the club. Team playing well as the season wraps up. Sure, not getting into the postseason, that's one thing of frustration, but the future is bright. We'll get to the roster. We'll get to the playing aspect in a moment, but 10 days from now, shovels in the ground, and I think that's remarkable considering what's transpired over the last year and a half to 2 years with this franchise. How proud are you of what's coming in 10 days? And you can look at this process of getting the land, getting the stadium going, but sometimes that takes 2 to 3 years, Tim. Are you amazed by how fast this has all come together?
I am amazed every day that I come into the office and I see the amount of work that's been done over the past really 8 months and maybe even, less time than that to get to where we are at today. It truly is remarkable. Extremely proud of the organization. It's been a joint effort, obviously, between the people who work at the Crew, but then also the people at Haslam Sports Group and ownership in the Browns, who we've worked together to get to where we are at today. And that's not even mentioning all the actors and players with the city, county, and state, the Columbus partnership. Just to think, as you mentioned, a year ago today, we really didn't even know if the team would be here. A lot of us weren't even living in this city. And now fast forward to October 1st, and we're just a few days away from groundbreaking on what we believe is a modern icon of a stadium. And it's going to shepherd in a new era of not just soccer in Columbus, Ohio, but also a sporting event and fan experience that we think is going to be, second to none.
Tim Bezbachenko, the guest here on Inside the Crew, working with Haslam Sports Group, and a lot originating out of Cleveland and the Browns organization. How seamless has that transition been, or has it taken a little bit of time to get everybody on the same page and humming along?
I think we've all been on the same page from the beginning, but I think the sheer amount of work that was required to get to where we are at today was no doubt a challenge. And we have multiple projects that we're doing in some ways on the fly that should take 2 to 3 years, right? The stadium project, acquiring the land, the training ground project, the community sports park. We have an experience center that will help give people shed a little light onto what they're going to experience in the new stadium. Is another project that will be underway soon here. So I wouldn't say it took time for it to all gel. It was just getting to know each other is one thing, but it's really the sheer number of projects that we're working on. But obviously we released the renderings last week, and the stadium is going to be unique for every visitor. It's going to be different. There'll be a different flavor on all 4 sides of the stadium. The wraparound canopy roof that covers all the seats, from the beer garden and the crew house to the plaza to the 34,000 square foot of premium space, so that when there is a rain delay, if there is one, our fans not just take cover under the stands, but they're doing it in a comfortable environment with food and drinks with their friends, and it's going to really change the way people not just take in the game, but interact and interact with each other and celebrate the game.
A lot to be proud of if you're a Columbus site. CrewStadium.com, we've seen these magnificent renderings. As a local to the community, what are you most excited about in terms of the renderings and coming to fruition with the building itself? There's so many things you just mentioned with the roof and each different stand being unique, but what are you most excited to see come to life?
There's a few things. I think first and foremost, the shape of the stadium and the way that it's going to stand out. It's modern. I think it's iconic. It stands out from the rest of the arena district. And I think it's something that people from Columbus will be proud of. 2, I believe that it's a great community space. So we're going to open it up on non-match days, the ability to come down and take in a match in our crew house or on the plaza during an away game setting, or to take in another sporting event or fashion show. There's a plethora of ideas and plans for us to activate this site where it's not just going to be soccer matches on 17 match days a year. So we're really excited about that. And then what I mentioned earlier, I'm really excited about the way people are going to gather. We're providing a space for them to come together and enjoy this global game of soccer. It's extremely inclusive. It's diverse. Our fan base is diverse, and they want to enjoy the game in different ways. So if you're part of the Nordeck, the way that you experience the game in that stands, standing up the entire game, painting your face, possibly a shirt, possibly no shirt.
David Putty style.
That's going to be different than on the west side, where you might want to be sitting down and you want to be close to the players. That's really important to you. The ability for you to be in the tunnel club, to shake hands with the players as they enter the field. That's a different feel versus, maybe on the south side where you have views to downtown and you want to be near the crew house. and that part of it may be a little bit more important to you. So I think between those three things, I think there's something for everyone. And we've seen it in the response because there's a number of people who've already joined our wait list, which is for the folks that are not current season ticket holders or 2020 season ticket holders who have priority. But there is a growing wait list, so we're excited to see how that number grows over the next few months.
And you can gain priority access in the new downtown stadium by joining the new Crew Stadium priority waitlist today. Again, go to crewstadium.com for more information. President General Manager Tim Bezbatchenko, the guest here on Inside the Crew. What's the most important thing in your eyes for 2020? Having a good product on the field is, I'm sure, at the top of that list. But in terms of building the fan base, getting people to have that length and interest in the team heading into the summer of 2021 and beyond, really, for that.
Yeah, I mean, I always start with the product on the field, the game of soccer. I think that's the most important thing. So we'll get to talking about the roster in a little bit, but I think it's reintroducing ourselves to the market. We clearly have a number of diehard fans that help save this team, and they're going to be with us through thick and thin, and they're going to help us as we look to grow our influence, but also just grow the game. But it's reintroducing ourselves to maybe the fan and to the market who think of the Crew as the same Crew as 1996 or even, frankly, even 2013 and 14. With new ownership, our level and our ambition is second to none, and our ability to change our roster will reflect that. So if it's soccer that you like, I feel like the Columbus Crew has always put a competitive team on the field, and we'll be doing that. But it's the way the city is going in terms of becoming a global city, in terms of the population growing. It's a millennial-driven growth. It jives and it perfectly aligns with the way the league is growing and the way the sport of soccer is growing. So again, it's getting out into the market. Speaking to who we are, showing people our new identity, sharing with them who we want to become. It's also reconnecting with the youth soccer market, who many clubs used to have a great relationship with the Crew, but for whatever reason over the years maybe do not. So I would say that's the most important thing, is sharing with the market for anyone who listens what we're about, what type of experience we want to provide to them, and that we want to be a part of the community, and that we're willing players in that process.
Get in one more question here before our first break. Tim Bezbatchenko with us here on Inside the Crew. Going into this season, there wasn't really much of an off season. You have the turnover. You didn't have control over the home schedule. I'm sure getting people in the stands at Mafre for the final full season is important to you as well. Even though the season ticket numbers had increased, you want more bodies there. Is it a more home-friendly schedule? I'm sure you've seen the skeleton of early 2020 and more control over that now that you know it's not just a placeholder and there won't be 6 home games perhaps in March through April. Do you like the way things are setting up in terms of that?
I do. That's a really good point. I think there were so many sort of challenges that we had to face this year, and a lot of them we had zero control over given the timing of everything. And the schedule is near the top of the list. We need to make sure that we get into a regular cadence of home and away to the extent that we can. We need to factor in which dates we're going to play on FIFA international match dates and which we're not, and hopefully we're not going to play on them if we have it our way, which means we won't lose Giassi Zardes, Will Trapp, Jonathan Mensah, David Guzman, Luis Diaz, and on and on. There were so many matches this year, I believe it was maybe around 8, where we didn't have our full team. And it came during that rough stretch. So having control of our schedule allows us to get in the proper cadence. Some days you can sneak in an extra day of rest if you have a 3 and 8 where you play on a Wednesday game, and maybe you could bump a game from Saturday to Sunday. So these are all things that we're looking at, and I don't want to get too much into the weeds, but even when it comes down to what time the matches starts, especially early in the year when the temperatures are low, can we maybe start in the mid-afternoon? So those are all things that we're looking at, and I'm really excited about the direction it's headed. We're working with the league office to finalize that, but that won't come for a couple months.
A lot more to discuss with President and General Manager Tim Bezbatchenko. Stay with us on Inside the Crew. Back after this.
Back to Inside the Crew. Here's Neil Sika and Dwight Burgess.
Welcome back on this Tuesday night, Victory Tuesday. Crew off the 2-0 win against Philadelphia, 5-1-6 in their last 12 games. We've got President and General Manager Tim Bezbatchenko here on the show, and let's get into some soccer talk, Tim. The excitement of the way this team is playing and the points they've accumulated here down the stretch. You wish there was a few more games. I know officially eliminated from playoff contention last week, but over the course of the last 12 games, there's only two teams with more points than Columbus. That's New York City. They've taken the Eastern Conference. They've got 26 over 12. And then Colorado. Amazing turnaround. They're still alive on Decision Day coming up on Sunday. Tall order against LAFC, but really incredible what Connor Casey and Robin Fraser has done there. So you got to be proud. I know it wasn't the 3 months in the middle of the season that you wanted to see. There was injuries. There was call-ups. There was lack of goal scoring, busiest summer transfer window in club history. But how proud are you of the way things have kind of come together and the acquisitions that are giving you that return on the investment, at least here in the short term, to make you feel good about what's going to happen going into 2020?
Yeah, I mean, obviously optimistic about the future and the way that the players have responded to Caleb and also, you know, the way the changes we made mid-year and how they've turned out to so far to have helped us during this stretch. You know, it's funny because MLS is, given the single entity nature, it is extremely competitive. In a lot of ways, it's forgiving because you have a conference like the Eastern Conference that just beat up on each other, and so you're always in it. But what we can't do, which is what happened this year, is let the lows get too low and we drop too many points. When, you know, tying games that we should have won and losing games that we should have tied. And you mentioned a few of those. Obviously, injuries and call-ups played a part. But we have to find ways with the group that we have to get results. And it's about accumulating points. And we can't give up goals late like we did at times this year. And because we dug ourselves too deep of a hole. And so over the last 12 games, though, we have shown that we are a resilient group. We've come together. We've responded. We're playing a little bit different style, a little more aggressive, physical, pressing higher up the pitch. And I think that the group has responded in a lot of ways. And obviously the new signings help. But I think also just more time with the players. Caleb didn't really have time to prepare for preseason as much as he would have liked. You know, I would have loved to have a few of the drafts and the months leading up to preseason to make sure that the players on the roster matched the way that Caleb wanted to play or wants to play. I feel good about the way the last 12 games have gone. But even then, I would say that we could have been a little bit better because there were I think four of the 12, or maybe even 5, we gave up stoppage time goals. And I think the way the last game played against Philadelphia is how we have to see out games, where we're not giving up opportunities and we're actually on the front foot looking for that second goal rather than possibly looking to concede a goal at the end. So if we had won some of the 4 or 5 games, we'd be in the playoffs right now.
Yeah, no doubt about that.
So we got to make sure we take that and we learn from it and we get better next season.
Yeah, 8 points slipping away after the 84th minute from August on, and you do the math there, and you're already in the playoff positions. Tim Bezbatchenko, the guest here on Inside the Crew. There will be more roster decisions. I know the offseason window and even going into next year, you're going to look to add pieces, perhaps another designated player. Decisions to make guys on the current roster who are out of contract or have options, and of course the biggest of all of those, Federico Higuain, who's a top 3 player in club history. He's going to be 35 at the end of the month. He's coming off the ACL tear. And this is more of a broad strokes question, but when do you start to have all of these conversations? Is it immediately after the season ends, or do you kind of ease into that because you'll want to be ready to go with the ground running come the start of next season?
Yeah, it's a little bit of both. You know, I think the formal conversations happen certainly after the last game. There might be an opportunity or two to speak directly with a player beforehand if he's injured, like some of our players are, because it's not going to affect the game or the lead up to a game. Player representatives are also reaching out to get a feel. They try to get a feel, at least in terms of what we're thinking, and so you just have to feel it out to decide, what you want to disclose if you're ready to make decisions. But for the most part, our last game obviously is this weekend at Toronto, October 6th, which is one of the earliest, or if not the earliest ever in the league, in the way that they condensed the schedule this year, ending this first week of October versus the last week of October. So it gives us a little more time in the offseason. There's the expansion draft with Nashville, Miami coming in. There'll be a waiver draft. Free agency will open. There is the re-entry draft, which is sort of the precursor to free agency before that started under the last CBA. So there's a number of ways to that our roster will naturally and inevitably evolve. Especially if, for example, a player is taken in the expansion draft. So we're excited about it.
It's interesting you bring up CBA and player representation, and the CBA, the current CBA, comes to a close. The last thing you want is the wrench thrown into the momentum, at least here, for all that's going on. Are you pretty optimistic that a deal will be seen through and everything will start on time going into next year?
I've learned my lesson in those 5 years ago, where I don't, I essentially go completely silent when it comes to CBA. So, obviously that's done from a leadership group at the league in terms of, and owners that negotiate that and are speaking with the players union. So, I'm always optimistic about these things. So I'm excited about next season, and hopefully we can get something done.
Tim Bezbachenko, the guest here on Inside the Crew, as we're talking all things black and gold. It was funny, I think you had mentioned this several times, 30-some people within the front office, and now it's up to 75, and positions around you. But if you took a pie chart to break down your day when you started, and concentration on the stadium stuff and the roster stuff, how would you divide your time? I'm sure it's still never ending, but the adjustment for you from just going from the general manager position in Toronto FC and working with the roster and to now being the president of an entire organization, how's that transition been for you?
Yeah, it's been busy, but it's one of the reasons I wanted to come here, was the opportunity to oversee and have some influence on not just the soccer operations, but also the way the business is run and the way the business connects with the community and reflects the values of Columbus. And to do it in your hometown makes it even more special. So, yes, the pie chart on my days, it changes quickly. Every day is different. It's why you rely on your staff, and the whole idea and my philosophy, and I know many people share this, is you hire people that are excellent at what they do. They're smarter than you in their specific area, so that and you have diverse opinions and diverse experiences within each group, so that you can make great decisions. So excited that obviously Caleb's here, but we, Pat Onstad is another person who we have on board on the soccer operations, who on a daily basis drives things forward and is helping the roster evolve, and is involved with our new scouting department that we created. So really excited to have Pat, who has a number of championships to his name as a player and has been in the league for a number of years. Knows the game inside and out, has played, obviously Canadian international, but American now. So it's about dividing your time, but relying on the people that you put into place to do their job and give them the support that they need and the resources they need to make good decisions.
I have about a minute left with Tim Bezbachenko here on Inside the Crew. Regular season finale coming up on Sunday at Toronto, and of course that's a special place for you as well. Even though it's great to be back home, but you made a lot of memories there, of course, with the incredible 2017 season. So what are you most looking forward to as you head up to BMO this weekend?
It's just the fans were good to me while I was there, and the staff were great. Obviously, we won the treble together while I was there, which is historic, and so there's a lot of good memories up there. So only my family only moved at late May. And so we have a lot of friends and family that'll be at the match. So I'm excited to go up there and see everyone. No doubt we're looking to get 3 points. We want to finish the game on a high. Obviously, Toronto has a very strong roster, and they've had some good results as of late. So they're going to be wanting to get in, hit the preseason or hit the postseason on a roll. So, but it's about us and our game. But I'm excited about it, and I'm not sure I'll see. Is that why you had the Bare Naked Ladies? Is because they're from Canada?
We play, so when we have the opponents for that week, we play music from that team's city. And we've got 8 songs in the arsenal. Do you have a favorite Torontonian artist?
I feel like I have to say Drake, but I would, he was able to interact with him a few times. He's the ambassador for.
That's right. He helped the Raptors win the title.
Shawn Mendes or Bryan Adams. I could go on and on. There's a lot of them.
Well, this is an ongoing conversation. Looking forward to what's ahead for the black and gold, and hopefully they close on a good note come Sunday. Enjoy that trip, Tim. Thanks for being gracious with your time, and we'll talk to you soon.
Of course. Thanks, Neil.
President, General Manager Tim Bezbatchenko. Great stuff for the fans out there here on Inside the Crew. We'll come back, talk with TSN's Luke Weilman, preview the game for Sunday here on ITC. 97.1 The Fan.
Coming. Saturday is game day.
Presented by your Central Ohio Chevy dealers.
Spend your entire Saturday with us. The Fan, Ohio sports destination. Back to Inside the Crew. Here's Neil Sika and Dwight Burgess.
It's just Neil tonight. And rocking in the studio. I want to thank Tim Bezbatchenko for his time. A lot of good stuff in there, and a lot more to get to on future shows. We'll have him back. He's heading to Toronto with his team on Sunday, Decision Day, and Toronto FC, which was in Columbus in August and got a Josie Altidore goal in second-half stoppage time. Part of those points dropped for the Crew. But TFC's been humming along. They're unbeaten in their last 8, 3-0-5, and they've got a shot at a home playoff game. Our good friend Luke Weilman, regular here, and we'll call it on TSN, joins us. How you doing, Luke?
I'm good, Neil. You?
Oh, great. I know you got the kids under control in this period. We could get you on the show, so I'm glad everything's humming along smoothly for you.
Yeah, for now. We'll wait and see what happens in the next few minutes. It'll be chaos.
And I think indeed, it's a good place to pick up. I just had Tim Bezbatchenko on the show, and you got to know him over the course of 5+ seasons as the general manager up there. How do you feel the fans hold him in high? I know the fans hold him in high regard because of what he delivered and brought a championship to the city. But your interactions with Tim, and bright guy and a lot going for it here in Columbus. But how do you reflect on his tenure up in Toronto?
Well, I think it was great for him in terms of the timing that he was able to go and return home and get more responsibility in turning around what was an incredible project there in Columbus with the stadium and looking at the whole club rather than just his role in Toronto, which was general manager, looking after the team, obviously with a president above him. So a big step for Tim Bezbatchenko there. Obviously, as a general manager, he delivered Toronto FC's first MLS Cup. He got them to the final twice during his time, very successful in the Canadian Championship, and also a big run in the CONCACAF Champions League as well. And he put together, at the time, what was the best MLS regular season that any team has ever produced, when they set a new points record and scored more goals than anyone ever had up at that point in 2017. That was, of course, the best season TFC fans have ever witnessed at BMO Field. And to put it all into perspective, this was after a decade of failure. And in Tim Bezbatchenko's 5 years, I think the biggest thing that he did for TFC in the early stages was to bring stability. After what had been chopping and changing in direction in the front office and also in the coaching and playing side of things as well, to just come in and have that stability and to work alongside Greg Vanney for so long to try and build something. And then, of course, he was backed superbly by MLSE, giving him the biggest payroll in Major League Soccer. The ability to go and make those big signings from across the world, turn some heads as well, and in the end be successful with delivering that MLS Cup.
Luke Weilman, the guest here on Inside the Crew. He'll call the action on TSN Saturday. And it's only been 9 games since these two have connected. It ended 2-2. When we spoke to you back in August, it was a little nervy. There was some stress. They hadn't been on this run of unbeaten games. I know they lost the Canadian Championship final. Do you think now that they're in the playoffs, they want that home playoff game? There was maybe a little bit of concern, and there might still be in terms of the future of Greg Vanney and what happens beyond this postseason. But how do you feel they've been these last 8 games? Is they're prone to score 4 or 5 goals a game, but could give up a few on the back end? Where do you see this team as they hit the postseason?
They've put together a run, and it was early August the last time they were beaten in Major League Soccer on the road at New York Red Bulls. And since then, they've put together a run where they have looked solid. Omar Gonzalez has really made a huge difference for them at the back. I mentioned that when he came in August, but when we spoke to you in August. But since then as well, he's been a key part of this Toronto FC turnaround. I think they're disappointed that they've left some points on the table. They would have expected by now to have locked up a fourth spot in the league and a home playoff date, and even potentially higher than that. But what they've done during this unbeaten run is at times been unable to turn those 1-point games, those draws, especially away from home, into victories that they felt they should have got. A couple of weeks ago, they put in the best 45 minutes I've seen from TFC since they won MLS Cup. The first half at LAFC, and they were leading at LAFC right until stoppage time when Chris Mavinga had a bit of a brain cramp, gave away a penalty, dropped 2 points there. They had a huge error a couple of weeks before that to throw away 2 points at New England and had to draw the game there instead of win it when Quentin Westberg made a mistake, the goalkeeper. So during this stretch, yes, they're on an unbeaten run, and they've been ticking along nicely. But there are still some question marks about this TFC team, whether they can deliver. Josie Altidore hadn't scored for a while before he got one at the weekend. They're still trying to find out what Alejandro Pozuelo's best position is within the way Greg Vanney wants to play. And then they've had a couple of players, Benazet, who's been injured a bit, and Gallardo, who they brought in July, who haven't made as much of an impact as they would have liked. So still a few question marks heading into this playoffs for a TFC team that I think they think that on their day they can be as good as anybody in the Eastern Conference. But it looks right now as if it might be a tricky course where they have to play on the road a fair bit during the playoffs.
TSN's Luke Wildman, the guest here on Inside the Crew, and you bring up an interesting point. If they could make a run, they could go all the way to MLS Cup. Anyone could, really, in this single elimination format. But if they go one and done, does that bring up topics of concern again around the coaching staff? And do you see changes being made?
I'm not so sure. Middle of the season, in fact, when we last spoke, I would have edged more to the fact that, yes, they needed a top 4 finish and they needed to have a pretty good playoff run to move forward in the same manner. I'm not sure what Ali Curtis is thinking right now. The general manager, of course, who came in last January when Tim Bezbatchenko left. This is a TFC side that really hasn't had all of the pieces that they would have wanted until the middle of the season. Yeah. And then I think since then they've had this decent run. Because of the change in the off-season, they were late sorting out the situation in terms of Giovinco leaving. Because they couldn't get Pozuelo in time for the start of the season. They had to start without that designated player available, although he came pretty soon after. They failed to get Gonzalez in the first transfer window, had to wait till July. Same thing with Benazet and Gallardo. So it wasn't really until the end of July when Greg Vanney finally got all of the pieces together to be able to do what he wanted with. And since then, although I said they've drawn too many games, they have been very difficult to beat and to break down, which is something that wasn't the case earlier on in the season. So I think it purely depends what is happening over the next couple of weeks in terms of how they finish the season and what they look like in the playoffs. And obviously, the further Greg Vanney goes, then that topic goes away. But it's not just that. It's about how big the reset is if they decide to have one. And even if Greg Vanney stays, does look to go in a slightly different direction with Michael Bradley being out of contract at the end of this year. And what do they do with him? Because he's been hand in hand with Greg Vanney during that era where they have had this success. And it'll be interesting to see what TFC do. Some huge decisions in the off-season. But the thought would be at this point that Michael Bradley certainly would come back as a designated player, that it would have to be sort of a maximum TAM deal if Bradley was to re-sign with TFC. Yeah, very fair there. Columbus also with getting most of their roster in gear in the summer window, much like Toronto FC. Has there been any update on the Bradley talk? I know Mum was kind of the word the last we spoke. Yeah, and that's still the same. I spoke to Ali Curtis a few weeks ago, and out of courtesy to Michael Bradley, he's keeping quiet, and Bradley has said that he doesn't want anything addressed. I do believe that at the moment they haven't even got too far down the road in terms of the discussions that they're having. I think both parties know sort of what their end game is, and I think when the season finishes, they will have the meetings to try and get towards that. But I wouldn't expect to find out anything about which direction TFC and Michael Bradley are going in until the season finishes and the decision has been made, because certainly during the whole Sebastian Giovinco thing, when it was all drawn out and played out very publicly, Michael Bradley made it clear that he thought these things should be done in private, and that's really the way Michael Bradley is, a private person off the field.
Got about a minute left here with TSN's Luke Wildman. Do you sense frustration or disappointment with them not winning the Canadian Championship? Yes, they lose on penalties, but that's a CONCACAF Champions League spot that goes by the wayside.
It is, and obviously this is a team that has spent an awful lot of money and would want to be Canadian champions and would want to compete in the CONCACAF Champions League, although Greg Vanney put pretty much a reserve lineup out in the first leg of the final in Montreal, ahead of a game that they had at LAFC. So he sort of showed his priorities there in terms of, let's just play this second string lineup. I think he made 8 or 9 changes, and then, try and get a good result in the league at the weekend, and do enough to be able to try and win it at home when he played a strong lineup for the second. I think they won 1-0 but lost in a penalty shootout. So I think the priorities for Greg Vanney at that moment were trying to make sure they locked up a home playoff date. And I also think from a TFC perspective, whatever they decide moving forward, and whoever's in charge next year and whoever's the captain of the club, and if they've got Michael Bradley there or if they bring in any designated player, for the first time in a long time, they will have a pre-season to be able to prepare for the MLS season where they haven't got that distraction of the Champions League and they can just focus fully on hitting the ground running in MLS, which I think for some around the club will be seen as a good thing.
Toronto, Columbus, decision day just after 4 o'clock on Sunday. TSN's Luke Wildman, always gracious with his time. Thanks so much, Luke. Enjoy the rest of Peppa Pig. We'll talk to you later in the week.
Thanks, Neil.
All right, we'll come back. We'll put a bow on the show. Some final thoughts. Look ahead to some of the big games this weekend as well. Inside the Crew, 97.1 The Fan.
Back to Inside the Crew. Here's Neil Sika and Dwight Burgess.
Origins of this band started in Canada, then they moved to L.A. It was a Dwight pick. Sends his regards. Some Wittenberg coaching duties preventing him from joining the show tonight. But a solid block of information and guests with President General Manager Tim Bezbatchenko, TSN's Luke Wildman. Thank them for joining. Decision Day Sunday, final game of the regular season. It's a season that's ending, at least calendar-wise, a couple of weeks earlier than what MLS fans have been used to. But this new playoff structure, the single-game format, and starting after this international break coming up next weekend, going to be so much more streamlined. And personally, I'm not patting myself on the back, but I've said this going back years. In fact, there's evidence of this in 2011 on Whitecaps FC Daily with Peter Shad. Go back and check the audio. I said, this is America. We embrace the playoffs. It should be single game. Home team, better team has the home field advantage and play from there. So I've always been in favor of it. I'm looking forward to it. Even though the Crew will miss out, you can be sure they're gearing up to make another playoff run and get back to things in 2020. Speaking of all these things that are coming up in the offseason, as soon as the season ends, you got the groundbreaking on the new downtown stadium. Talked about that with Tim Bezbatchenko earlier. Thursday, October 10th, so that's 10 days from now, if you count today. Starting at 2 o'clock. It's open to the public. Join historic. It's an historic event for this city. Food trucks, music, and more. CrewStadium.com for more information. It's got all your info. You got 2020 full season memberships that are now on sale. Remember, the people on the wait list now aren't people that have had tickets, as the front office has been saying. They're new fans, so that's great to see. Purchase or renew now to receive downtown stadium priority. Best prices on home matches and more. 447 Crew or visit ColumbusCrewSC.com and gear up. Want to dress appropriately for October 10th and future Crew games, you can go to the Crew shop. Best team apparel, that's at the stadium, Mafre Stadium, authentic and replica jerseys, Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. You're going out to the groundbreaking, are you not?
I am, yes. I'm very excited to see what it's all about. I'm going to be covering it for the station. And, I don't know what to expect yet, but I know it's going to be just an amazing environment.
Sure. Well, listening to Tim Bezbachenko, you got to be excited about everything that's planned for, if you're a soccer fan or you're interested and you're proud of your city of Columbus, that's where I think it can catch you. Just all this development that's going to come in the next year and a half. It's remarkable to see.
I completely agree, and especially what we saw, and we talked about it earlier, the summer transfer window where they made the most moves in the history for the club, and just seeing how much effort they're putting into improving not only the club, but what they're putting on the field, too, is really important to everybody. And especially if you're just a mid-level soccer fan, at least this should help pick up those people that are in that category.
Yeah, it'll be game-changing, this new downtown stadium. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't come out and support the group in 2020, the last full season at Mafre Stadium. I'm sure the home games will be more schedule-friendly, just in terms of not only for the team, but for the fans as well. There's 2 playoff spots that still remain to be claimed. Those are both in the West. I mentioned this earlier. Colorado, with their 22 points over 12 games, they had not won a game through their first 11, and now they've got a shot still. Portland, Dallas, and San Jose are scampering to the finish line. You've got LAFC winning the Supporter Shield. Minnesota, Seattle, LA, they're in the home playoff spots in the West. And then in the East, it's all decided just in terms of seeding. That's what remains for Decision Day. New England clinched that last spot, beating New York City. Columbus beating Philadelphia helped New York City clinch the top spot in the East. You've got Atlanta, Philly, D.C., looking at home playoff games. But the Red Bulls, Toronto FC, they're in position to sneak into those 2, 3, and 4 spots, which is everything. You want the home playoff game, especially playing in that first round, which is October 19th and 20th. You got the Nations League coming up. United States is in action. Canada and Cuba, these are taking the places of international friendlies. We're going to have much more on this as we'll conclude the regular season Sunday, but Dwight will be back, and we'll talk more about what comes for the Crew and their off-season moves and the roster changes. And heading into the playoffs, we'll speak as well with a lot of our national friends. I'm looking forward right now to going home and watching this Diego Maradona documentary on HBO. People have been raving about it. They say it's the best sports documentary of 2019 and perhaps on the last decade or so. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to speaking with everyone again next Tuesday inside the Crew with Dwight. Decision Day, Sunday, on the air, Sports Time Ohio, 4 o'clock kickoff just after 4:20. And you'll have Chris Doran here with all the radio action on 97.1 The Fan. Thanks to CB, Colin Behringer, who produced it. Thanks to you for listening. Thanks to the guest, Tim Bezbachenko, President GM, TSN's Luke Weilman. Talk to you next week on Inside the Crew, 97.1 The Fan. Enjoy the rest of your night, everyone.